On behalf of the EUobserver's brand new section on LGTB rights, I decided to catch up with the two co-presidents of the European Parliament's Intergroup on LTGB rights. So, joining me here this morning, I have Ms. Ulrike Lunacek, an Austrian MEP from the Green Groups, and Mr. Michael Cashman, British MEP from the Socialist Group. So thank you very much for joining me here for coffee this morning. So first of all, a very simple question. Tell me a bit about the day in the life of a president of this group and the biggest challenges.
Well, I think the one thing we have as presidents of the Intergroup, as well as many other members of the Intergroup, is that in all the topics we cover as MEPs, for example, I do foreign affairs, mostly on the Balkans and Southern Caucasus and a bit on Latin America. It's always a topic that you introduce, the rights of LGBT people, discrimination when it has happened, or say a statement against some homophobic statement of a minister. So it's something that is part of everyday work. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And we have good staff who also supports us in that, and good connections to the NGO community.
And Mr. Cashman, you used to work as a very famous actor back in the UK for EastEnders, the UK's biggest soap that's followed by so many people. So it was a big transition for you to come into politics. So tell me a bit about that and about your role.
Well, the transition actually was, I've been a member of the Labour Party for many years, but the transition was when the British Conservative government in 1987 brought in an anti-gay law. And I campaigned against that, then set up an organisation called Stonewall to campaign for equality. And that got me into mainstream politics because, as Ulrike was saying, once you get engaged, you become a bit like a Rottweiler. You have to sit there watching, monitoring. No, not always a nice one. Sometimes you've got to bite. You've got to be monitoring because human rights abuses, and that is what LGBT discrimination is, occur in our own countries of the EU and they occur outside. So it was that stimulus, and my passion went into politics and equality rather than into acting. So that's how I ended up here in 1999.
It's similar with me, and I think many of us I also come from the background, from the LGBT movement, the feminist movement and others, and it's like getting in touch with people. I learned my sort of LGBT politics in the International Lesbian and Gay Association at the World Conferences, where there were people from countries where you couldn't live as freely. Not in my country, you couldn't live that freely either in Austria. We only have a partnership regulation since the 1st of January of this year, and not even a very good one. But there were people in countries where you were persecuted, where you ended up in prison, some people killed. So that really gave me lots of strength, saying, well, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, you do have so many challenges. I mean, with the Eastern European countries now in the EU, how did that change, for example, your job? Like, has it made it more harder?
It made it much harder, but in a way it made it easier. Because what you sometimes do when you get some victories, and we have victories within the treaty and some EU laws preventing discrimination. We've got agreements with countries outside of the EU. But when we had that first wave of enlargement, there was a challenge against women's rights, for example, a woman's right to choose, against LGBT issues, against LGBT prides, and we had to fight and fight again. And I remember being in the chamber and turning around to some of the Central and Eastern European members who were heckling me, and I said, you should be teaching us how to fight for freedoms and solidarity and human rights, not the other way around. And it's a brilliant reminder that you can never relax, that when I leave here and when Ulrike Lunacek leaves here, we will have to hand over to somebody else, because as soon as you're complacent, the ground is taken from underneath you. When you look at countries like Ireland, countries like the UK where we now have virtually full equality for lesbians and gay men and some transgender people, it came about because when that nasty piece of anti-gay and lesbian law came in, heterosexuals went, hang on, you can't do that. What if that were me? And that's what I mean about connectivity. Once you connect with somebody else's fight, you know that if you let that fight go, eventually it will be your rights that will be under attack. I demand equality tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow.
And I find that's so important, not just us who are openly gay as Michael is, and I'm openly lesbian as I am. We have in the Intergroup by now 110 members. And not all of them are lesbian and gay. I would say the majority are not. Yeah? It's so important to have that support, especially also from people from the more conservative groups. Yeah? Because like Social Democrats, Liberals and Greens, we're known as being pro. Yeah? But we need the support also from people from the other groups.
And have you ever had any nasty experiences or personal discriminations right here in the Parliament?
I've had some reports back of what people have said about me, but it's interesting, they're not courageous enough to say it to my face. I've had little discrimination in the wider world. When I was on EastEnders playing that gay character, I had a brick through my window, and then another time, but I can count on one hand, and that tells me that actually a lot of politicians and organised religion, they misrepresent the decent, ordinary women and men of the world who actually are more understanding and more open-minded than they would have us believe.
No, I mean, I guess you as well, we get all kind of hate mails, but it's usually anonymous, yeah, so you don't know who that is.
I used to get that.
I still do, if I'm on TV and something in my country or other places. So that's something. But and I got some stones thrown at me at Bratislava Pride this year. Luckily, he didn't hit me. These things happen, but it's something I don't feel threatened in general. Yeah, it's like...
And actually, it's a wonderful way of connecting in with what some people face because of their race or their ethnicity,
right.
or as you both know, as a woman. Those discriminations are there every single day. So when we get a reminder, I think it's a powerful push for us not to give up.
And it's important to connect with other issues like nationalism, like in the Balkans at the moment. Yeah, you have to try to see that human rights are for everybody. Yeah, and that nationalisms and radical ideas should not go against these common European values that many people also in the Balkans and in other countries have. Yeah, they're just not out there in the public as much.
And that's exactly what the EUobserver.com is trying to do now with this new section. So thank you very much for coming this morning, Mr. Lunacek and Mr. Cashman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it.
And the coffee was lovely.
And the
coffee was lovely.
Fantastic.
Thank you.